the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Open Line.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Line. I'm fascinated by tonight's topic. A little different, but I'm interested in what you think. And the question I'll start with, are you interested, fascinated, obsessed with true crime? We certainly see a lot of these kinds of podcasts, TV shows, movies lately about this murder, that murder, the person who did it. There seems to be an obsession. I don't know if it's a new obsession or if it's one we've always had. And we're going to talk about that. I want to ask you, are you obsessed with this stuff, and why? And I think it'll be an interesting conversation. Take a look at what's on Netflix right now. This is a preview of something that's on Netflix right now.
He didn't look like anybody's notion of somebody who would tear apart young girls.
My name is Ted Bundy.
I've never spoken to anybody about this. I am looking for an opportunity to tell the story as best I can.
A person of this type chooses his victim for a reason. Possession, control, violence.
There was something unique about Ted's brain. He talked in terms of a voice in his head, and this voice would start saying things about women.
He had very blue eyes. When he really got going, his eyes went absolutely black.
Murder leaving a person of this type hungry, unfulfilled, would also leave him with the obviously irrational belief that the next time he did it, he would be fulfilled. And the next time he did it, he would be fulfilled. Or the next time he did it, he would be fulfilled.
Theodore Bundy has escaped, suspected of dozens of sex killings in Washington State, Idaho, Utah, and Colorado.
I think things are going to work out. That's about all I can say.
Bundy is acting as his own lawyer. What is unusual to see is that many of the onlookers are women.
Are you a little scared when you look at him?
He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody.
Serial killer Theodore Bundy has escaped once again.
One of the FBI's most wanted men.
He was charming, good-looking, smart. Are you sure you have the right guy?
I mean, I'm not an animal and I'm not crazy. I'm a split personality.
I mean, I'm just a normal individual.
So not at all normal, and yet we're fascinated by it. So many are. That's evidenced by how many people have watched that on Netflix and watched so many of these other shows. That's what I want to talk about tonight. What is our fascination? Why is that happening? What does it say about us? Happy to have with us Dr. Anna Settle, a licensed psychologist. You're in forensics as well.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. All right, so what do you think? Why are people so fascinated by these things? This true crime?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. As I was watching that, I was just thinking about how ubiquitous he makes these killings sound. Like he's talking about them like serial killers are normal and it happens every day, when in that day and age, I mean, aside from Jack the Ripper and maybe Charles Manson, there hadn't been that many. But he, in fact, gets people to believe this notion that he's a normal guy and that the actions that he is taking, I mean, he's just sort of going about his business, and he's not crazy, he doesn't have a split personality. He's just kind of narrating the story about someone who is seemingly so normal. Mm-hmm. And I think people are fascinated by the fact that he seemed so normal. And we also are fascinated with other true crime stuff where, you know, like with Charles Manson, he was a cult leader, and you could, you know, watch some of those tapes, the Helter Skelter, and he seems abnormal and psychotic, whereas Ted Bundy seems so normal.
What does it say about us as a society that we are so drawn to these stories? What is, and is this something new? Is it cause for alarm, in your opinion? What does it say about us that we're so drawn to these things?
I don't think it's anything new. I mean, you think about, you know, telling ghost stories around a fire. People are thrilled by things that are of the unknown, you know? I mean, it's the same sort of reward pathway in the brain or adrenaline rush that comes with riding a roller coaster or opening a gift. We like to be surprised. We like to be thrilled. We like the adrenaline rush. So I don't think it's anything that's new. I think now that we have documentaries, the information that we have is so real. Whereas before it was fiction, it was a story that somebody was telling. Now, we have access to footage of murders, and we're watching, crime scenes. And so it seems a little bit gorier and a little bit more abnormal. But the idea has always been there.
Yeah, and it's around us everywhere.
Right.
There are podcasts, and there are things on Netflix, and it seems like people are talking about this stuff more than ever. Is that true? I mean, do you feel that? What do you feel?
Yeah, I do, because I think Hollywood has run with it. They recognize that we are so infatuated with it, and so they're, they're making money off of us. And so, they're creating more and more creative stories, and they're using true crime to create movies that we then watch, and they're making documentaries that are showing actual footage. So I think they're just, recognizing that we're fascinated with it.
Now, as a psychologist in forensics,
Yes.
you would interview criminals. You go into the criminal justice system and interview them. Is that right?
Correct.
And so Ted Bundy was interviewed, right?
Yes.
I mean, you interview people like that. What are you looking for when you go into that situation? Kind of, how does that all play?
Well, it depends on what I'm assessing them for, but part of the time I'm assessing them to see if they're competent to stand trial. So I think in this documentary, at one point, an attorney tries to claim that he is not competent. And so essentially she was trying to say he didn't understand how to correspond with an attorney in a meaningful way. He didn't understand the charges that were being brought against him, which of course I didn't assess him, but he seems to have the wherewithal to go through the court process. He seems to understand every charge that was brought against him. I think that was sort of a last-ditch effort to try to get him a stay of execution. But the insanity defense is a little bit different in that you're looking at the moment in which the crime allegedly occurred. So was the person at that moment in time able to understand that the action that they were taking was wrong and violent? So somebody that qualified for the insanity defense might be somebody like in the Andrea Yates case, where she actually thought that if she did not kill her children, that there was going to be some sort of evil force that was going to essentially ruin their lives. And so there's that psychosis piece that is involved, which is very different from what Ted Bundy was exhibiting.
And there's a very high bar there, right? It's very difficult to get to that level with the Ted Bundy,
right,
where he just doesn't understand. That's pretty rare. Is the other one less rare that you're talking about, where at the time they weren't in? I think that would even be hard to assess. How would you know they're thinking at the time when you're talking to them?
Right, so you have to get a lot of collateral evidence. You look at the affidavits of complaint, where you're actually going through what happened at the time of the crime. You walk with them through what they were thinking at the time of the crime. You're asking questions of people who were in their circle at the time of the crime, or days before or days after. But actually the insanity defense happens less often than being incompetent. So there are people who have a lower IQ that really just can't function within the criminal system. They don't understand exactly what a plea bargain is, or if their attorney is trying to explain to them what a witness might be saying about them in the courtroom, they might not understand that person is in an adversarial position to them.
So you talk to the individual, but you'll also talk to people around them, acquaintances?
Yes.
And so how long does one of these, investigations, how long does it generally take?
It depends on if I'm assessing for the insanity defense or for competency. But the insanity defense is a little bit more difficult, because you do have to get all of that collateral information and go back to the point in time when the crime occurred. Whereas with competency, you're just talking about the current point in time. Is the person able to stand trial? But it can take 6 to 8 weeks to sort of determine if somebody's competent and try to get them to the point where they can stand trial.
And how often do you think people try to game the system? I mean, I was fascinated to talk to you about this. I mean, how often is somebody just trying to pull the wool over your eyes, and maybe they could pull it over someone else's eyes? And how hard would it be to game the system? But I guess how often are people just lying about that, and you got to call them out and say, no, clearly you're competent, or
right,
clearly you knew what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, so most of the time when that happens, if you just sort of put that to rest in the very beginning and say, look, you know, you're showing these signs. The judge is not going to look on this very favorably. You're saying I don't know to every question that I'm asking you. You know, even somebody with a very low IQ knows their birth date, and you're telling me that you don't know when you were born. So you can sort of help them to understand that what they're doing is not very savvy and get them to start talking. There are also, we have malingering tests that we do, and so we can give a defendant a test to see, are they malingering? Are they trying to present as if they are more impaired than they actually are? And
malingering, and that's when you're faking it, right?
You're faking it to gain something, which would be obviously to gain the insanity defense or to be incompetent.
And how often is the insanity defense? Is it pretty rare?
It's very rare.
It's very rare.
It's
right?
very.
I mean,
very
I don't
rare.
see it that often.
No.
When it does happen, it causes. Usually, people are pretty concerned. Some are quite upset by it, but it's pretty rare, right?
It's very rare. Yes.
It's all very fascinating. All right, well, I want to take a break. We're kind of setting the table here. Kind of what are your thoughts? What is our obsession with true crime? Are you into all of this? Are you concerned by it? Kind of what are your thoughts? Call us, licensed psychologist here, Anna Settle. She can talk to you. I think it's an interesting topic. We'll be back. Take a break right after this.